Hey, what's up guys? This is Krishna here. Welcome to this exciting tutorial to create Smoky Text in Blender. Please note, this tutorial is based on my understanding. There may be other ways to do the same. Also, I would assume that you are familiar with Blender and its UI and shortcuts because of the lack of keystrokes add-on. If this tutorial is helpful, please give me a like, share, comment, and subscribe. As well, if you'd like to support me, please purchase the Gumroad files. I will leave a link in the description. Okay, let's do this. This is a brand new scene. Let's go ahead and delete this box and let's put in a text here and go into edit mode and type in SMOKE, all in capital letters. And then let's get out of it and select this A here, which is going to manipulate our font, and go into geometry. Extrude by 0.05 and go to the center alignment, okay, as well as rotate it in the X direction, and let's increase the size by 3, and this is because 1 is too small for smoke generation. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is we are actually set up with the font. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste it, so I got a duplicate version of the sign just in case, so I can check what the settings were if I need to replicate it, okay, in the future. But for now, we've got this text we got to work on, so I'm going to rename this to Smoky Text. Okay, and let's go to Object and go to Quick Effects and Quick Smoke. Now you got an error here at the bottom saying select at least one mesh object, and that is because this is currently a text. So to convert it to mesh, right click, convert to mesh, simple as that. And then let's go to Object, again Quick Effects and Quick Smoke. There it is, it's there. Now if I run it, it's just happening. Okay, good stuff. Right, but if you notice that this is turned into wireframe, okay, and that is by a default character because of the smoke domain. So if you want to change that, select the Smoky Text, and I think it's down here, a viewport display. Change the display as solid, so you can get that back if you want to. I'd like to be a solid, so I'm going to keep it like that, as well as I'm going to open up a pane on the left hand side here and select properties and click on smoke domain and go to here and pin that, because we're going to have to change this type to, you know, you're going to have to keep selecting this replay all the time to reset the smoke. That's how it works in Blender anyway. Right, I'm going to go ahead and enable adaptive domain before I change the resolution division to 256, and that's the resolution I worked on, and I'm going to keep it at that. It might be a little bit slow, but we'll see how it goes. Right, I'm going to go ahead and reply this. Let's run it and see what happens. So there you go. You can see the smoke is rising. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set up the camera now, and let's see. I'll change this to 90 and then 0, and let's have a look at the cam itself, and let's lock the viewport and bring it down here. Okay, so that is 0 here, and let's move this out by 15, and this will be okay, 2 maybe, or 1. Okay, perfect, that looks good. But before we go any further, I'm just going to uncheck this, and I want to actually add a modifier here. So I want a subdivision surface modifier, go to move it to first, and I want to change this to like this, because that looks kind of cool. Okay, and that's now done, and let's run it again. As you can see that the smoke is rising at the moment. We certainly don't want that. We want it to start moving at a certain frame, not before that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kill the buoyancy and the heat. Okay, while we are here, I might as well add a little bit of verticity to it, which is 0.025. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and reply and press go. Now you can tell that it isn't moving at all. There's another thing I want to point out here is that you will see these little steppings, and this is because of the resolution. Okay, now I'm sitting at 256, and that is pretty high already. Now if you want to reduce it any further, you're gonna have to pull this up, okay? But I'm not going to do that. However, that's how it is, okay? There's also one more thing, is that in the Smoky Text, if I go to the physics properties or this properties here, you see that I've got my flow source as surface emission. And I'm going to leave it at that, because if I enable volume emission, in the first run, it looks good. But anything after that, you will start to see little blocks of holes. I'm not sure why that is happening, but that's why I don't want to use it, okay? So while I'm here, I'm going to change this surface emission to 1, okay? So what I want to do is at frame number 24, I want to keyframe the surface emission, and then at frame number 25, I want to change it to 0. Okay, and there's a reason behind it. Okay, so basically what I want to do is I want the smoke generation to stop at 24th frame. Okay, because that is the frame, or the 25th frame is the frame where we're going to introduce wind. Okay, so I might as well go ahead and add that force field wind, and I'm going to rotate it in the y direction by 90. Okay, and then I'm going to push it in the x, and I'm going to push it up in the z, and ever so slightly bring it down. Okay, and I also want to change the max distance to 6, maybe 7, so that it cuts across the O here. Okay, that's it really. And the same thing, so I want to actually change the strength to 6 and the noise amount to 6 when I'm on the 25th frame, and I'm going to keyframe that. I'm going to go 1 frame back, and I'm going to change them to 0, and now I'm going to keyframe that as well. Perfect. So let's now run it and see what happens. So now you can see that the smoke is only moving when the wind comes into play. Okay, and also the S shape is retained, and that is because we've stopped generating smoke on the 24th frame. If you were to leave it, you will see a trail of smoke coming down this way. Okay, right. I like it, but I would like it to collide with the bottom. Okay, on the bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and check this border collision, but I also want to make sure that this is set up for border collision. All right, so I'm going to go to front view, and actually, you know what, I'm going to select this face selection, and then I'm going to go to front view. I'm going to pull this guy up ever so slightly, like just around there. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, and you get back out, and now I'm going to run it again, and let's see what happens. Okay, now you can see that it is colliding at the bottom. Okay, that's much better. Okay, at least to me. Good. Originally, I also animated the wind to stop at a certain frame, but I'm not going to do it this time. I'm going to let it be, okay, because it looks cool. All right, I'm actually going to change this display back to wire because I think it looks easier. It's easier for us to view the smoke at this point here. Okay, there it is. You can tell that the wind is coming into play exactly where it is at here. Okay, so that's perfect, but it doesn't look really great because it looks blurred out. Okay, so what can we do about that? And that we can add a noise here. Okay, and that is what is going to bring that resolution. But what I also want to do is I want to reduce the strength to 0.5 and increase the scale to 3, because the lower the scale, the tinier detail you're going to get. Now, for explosions, you would expect those tiny details to come through, but this is just a little smoke, you know, it's arbitrary smoke per se, you know, so I want to keep it at 3. So now you can really tell the resolutions coming through, and it looks much cooler than what we had before. Okay, you can already tell all of this little details coming through. Looks really nice, I think. Anyway, okay, we're just going to make a couple more changes and we'll call it a day for the simulation, and then we'll move on to the render. I want to change the CFL number to 8. Okay, and if I hover over this, it says maximal velocity per cell, and this is for fast moving simulations. But although this is not really fast moving, I'd still like to push this up because it does make a difference. And then I also want to change the minimum time steps to 2. And in the adaptive domain, I'm going to bring the margin down. You'll see this guy come closer and closer. Okay, and then I want to add a couple of resolutions here as well. If I hover over that, maximum number of additional cells, meaning to capture any smoke. Sometimes what happens is if the smoke goes past this threshold, it cuts it off. Okay, so, or below the threshold, my apologies. If it goes below this threshold, it cuts it off. I don't want that, so I want to add some resolution to it. Okay, I think that's how it works, but I might be wrong. Anyway, I've set this all up now, and I'm going to go ahead and replay and run it again. Okay, there you go. I think that looks pretty solid. Perfect. So what you can do is, now we've got this set up, you can actually go ahead and make changes to this. For example, I'll create another wind here if I want to, let's say, and I will bring this guy up to this side, and I will animate this guy now. So on the 24th frame, I will say this guy is going to be here. Okay, and on the 50th frame or whatever, I'm going to move this guy in the X direction to this side, and I'm going to keyframe that. But I will also go to physics properties and a max distance of 1. So it's a very small distance, even 0.5 for that matter. So it only affects part of the fonts or the word. Okay, let's see how that goes. But obviously I'll also need to animate these guys. So let's go to 24, and I'm going to put it to 10. Actually 0, 0, animate, and then next one, 10, 10, animate, and then at 50 I'll gradually reduce it. Maybe that won't be okay, but we'll see. I'll leave it at 1. Okay, so let's check out how that looks. Okay, it looks like it's activating immediately. Okay, and that is because this is, again, it is an effect that you can use if you like. Okay, but I don't want that, and this is happening because, let me just show you again. Right, although we've set this guy to only affect 0.5, this is happening, and that is because its shape is set to plane. Okay, and that's why. I mean, this is probably what you desire. That's fine if that's what you want, but I'm going to go ahead and change this to point. Now you're going to see the difference. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to run it. Now you can see it's not affecting it until it hits the actual text per se. Okay, that looks good. Let's change this, rotate this in the Y by 90, so it pushes the smoke this direction. Okay, let's see how that goes. Okay, as you can see now, it is pushing it in the positive X direction. Okay, All right, that's perfect. Okay, I'm going to go back to the original version here now. That's what I'm going to render with, okay? I've got frame number 30 now. Let's go ahead and render this, okay, and see how that looks. Right, I'm going to go into shading, okay, and I'm going to switch the render engine to cycles and select GPU. And there it is. Okay, perfect. And I'm also going to enable this guy here, and that's how it looks at the moment, okay? Not great, but that's okay. First thing I want to do is go into here and use Asset Browser. Now, I have Polyhaven as a browser, okay? I'll leave you a link in the description. You can check it out, how to use it and whatnot. But I'm going to use Studio here, number 7. And then hopefully this finds it. Okay, Studio number 7. I just got to drag and drop, and that's it. As simple as that. It's just going to work. There it is. It looks already really nice. I'm going to go ahead and actually select that one and kill the actual text showing up. Okay. That looks good, but I'd like to enhance this. Okay, let's work on the lighting. As I've mentioned in one of the previous tutorials, lighting is absolutely critical for the smoke, okay? So let's figure out where it is. This guy's up here now, okay? I want to change this guy to a spotlight or an area light, whatever. And then I'm going to pull this guy down to here, okay? And rotate it. So it's kind of coming from this direction, okay? I'm just going to pull it down a little bit. And go to front view. Yeah, so that looks okay to me. And then top view, which is 7. I see, there's the problem. Okay, and am I moving in the y direction, the center here, and then rotate it again to align it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, and let's jack this off. Okay, that's too much. Yeah, I think that should be okay for now. But also, I want to bring the world strength down by -2. So it's primarily lit by the light we're using here, okay? But there's obviously a little bit of environmental lighting coming into play as well, okay? So that's that. And then I also want to go ahead and use color management and change this look to base contrast. Okay, that's fine. And the light paths, finally, I'm going to change it to 1 because this is the number of bounces that the light can have when it goes through a medium. In this case, it's smoke. Okay, I want to keep it at 1. And then let's go back to object and select smoke domain. And this is where now we're going to actually set up the material for the smoke. Let's put in an attribute and call this density. Connect that to the density. And suddenly you'll see all of these lighter areas start to show up. And this is because we've used surface emitter rather than the volume emitter. Now, if you use the volume emitter, as I mentioned before, you will see, or you might see, these blocks of holes, which I didn't like. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this and call this heat. We're going to use heat to shave off any extra density that we don't need on the outside of it, okay? And I'll show you now. If I just put in a math node here and connect the factor and multiply it, suddenly you see a little bit of the smoke has been shaved off of the ends or edges, okay? It's perfect. But I don't want to leave it there. I actually want to use a ramp here to customize it a little bit. And I want to actually right click and reset to default value so I get the alpha here, okay? But also what I want to do is, you see this area here where it is lighter, I want to try and bring up the density there, okay? So the best way to do is use another math node here and multiply this. Multiply the actual heat that is coming in, and I want to push this up. When I push that up, you can see that the inside part is much thicker now. And I also want to introduce another multiplier here as an overall multiplier for both the density and the heat. Okay, now you can see how it is affecting. So now 4.5 seems pretty good. Okay, and finally I want to change the smoke color to fully white. There you go. That's pretty much it. I am not going to enable motion blur for this because I tested it both using motion blur and without motion blur, and without motion blur looked far better. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and render this, and I'm going to come back. Okay, midway through I realized I had to show you a couple of things before going with the final render. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click on render image here. As you can see, this is 1080 resolution. Okay, I don't want that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and escape that, and I'm going to go ahead and change this to 50% first of all. And I'm going to enable render region and crop to render region, as well as if I now enable this render here, you see this sharp shadow? I don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the light, and down here, and this is why it's happening, because it's 0.1 meters. It's a very small area light. Okay, so I want to make this 1 meter by 1 meter so you don't get that sharp shadows. Okay, and I think that's about it. And I'm going to go ahead and do, oh, I actually forgot. I also want to change this to 1024 because I'm not going to do a full-blown rendering here. But I'm going to go ahead and render this first image and see how that looks. Okay, there it is. I think that looks pretty good. If you remember, I talked about this light path here where I set this to 1 in the volume. Now that will increase your render time. Okay, so with 1, it is sitting at 19 seconds. Okay, if I change that to 0, and actually let me change this to 2 and render. Okay, so previously it was 19 seconds, now it's 14 seconds. Obviously this will make a difference if you were to render in high resolutions. Okay, right, anyway, and also this smoky text I don't want. Obviously you can see the text here in solid. So if I go to third one and render it again, you'll see it's only the smoke that appears now. Okay, so there's a difference. Okay, so don't forget to turn that off, otherwise it's gonna ruin it. Okay, fine. I'm gonna go ahead and render this, and I will come back. Okay, rendering is done now. I did 60 frames. Let's have a look at it. I think that looks pretty cool. It's a bit short, but it looks pretty cool. What I also want to do now is that not only do this, but also I want to try a different one. Okay, so where I will stop the wind at around 36th frame, just about right here, and let's see how that behaves. And let's make those changes now. All we got to do is go to this wind here and go to 36, and let's now kill this guy here to 0, and that one to 0, and move back 1 frame on the 35th frame and leave it at 6. Maybe I should have done that first. Never mind. Okay, now I've done that. I'm going to go ahead and run this sim and render it, and I'll come back. Okay, all the renders are done now. I went ahead and did an additional render. Okay, so this is the original render right here at the bottom, and then we stopped the wind force at frame number 36, and this is the result of that. No, it is not. This is the result of that. So there it is. It stopped, and I didn't like the way it just came to a complete halt down here. Although it looks cool, I didn't like it, so I went ahead and made a further change where I pushed the stopping of the wind to frame number 48. Therefore, down here you can see it's at 35, and at 48th frame it come to a stop instead of frame number 36. Okay, So that's this guy here. Okay, perfect. Now that doesn't look that dissimilar to our first version, but hey, you play around with it and you got the idea. Hopefully this is helpful, and if it did, please give me a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. If you'd like to support me, please purchase the Gumroad files. I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Cheers.